Let me talk about NPR, and in conjunction with NPR, I want to talk about the Harvard cafeteria strike that took place here in Boston. So I'm listening to NPR this morning, and I listen because I do my morning run, and then I take my kids to not jogging. I drive the car and take my kids to school, and my wife to the train, and then I go to do my job. And so as I'm driving to my job, I'm listening to NPR. And the last few weeks, I believe 3 weeks now, a group of about 750 Harvard cafeteria workers have been protesting for two things: a living wage, because if you live in Boston, you need to make money, and then two, to make sure that their health care doesn't increase. And part of the arguments, and it's not apples to apples, and I get that. I want to say that at the front before I even tell you what the argument has been. It's not apples to apples, but one of the arguments has been the fact that Harvard has a $35.7 billion endowment, yet they're not paying their cafeteria workers a living wage. A living wage in Boston is really nearly $40,000 a year, but they were making an average of $30,000 a year. So they're protesting to get $35,000 a year plus no increase in their expenses. Now, the good news is that they've come to terms with the university. And it looks like they either have signed a deal today or they will sign it tomorrow, and the strike will be over because they got what they needed. So congratulations to all the people, all the cafeteria workers, everyone who's been standing in solidarity with them. I was listening to NPR this morning, though, and they took it upon themselves, WGBH here, local Boston, BPR, Boston Public Radio, they took it upon themselves to make an explainer as to why people should not look at this $35.7 billion endowment as a means of supporting or justifying an increase in pay for the workers. And they literally took 5 entire minutes to explain why, if we take the money from this, then we won't have more money to do this type of research. And just the overall tone and the condescension in their tone was dismissive of the reality that there should be no company, no business that has billions of dollars of assets, however you want to categorize it, and they cannot pay their employees enough to live in the city in which they work. It was a casual dismissal of that. And I'm like, NPR, who represents the neoliberal, the NPR plays a very specific role. Let me say it like that. And as many good things as they do, and I appreciate my some followers who reminded me NPR does some good things. If they didn't do some good things, I wouldn't listen to them. So I'm not going to throw the hammer down on them completely, but I'm going to throw it down enough. As many good things as they used to do, they're starting to do some really undermining, ridiculous things that are trying to normalize the problems that we have in America. Not only normalize the problems in America, they're trying to give people who are aloof to the problems in America a look into the problems of America. It's like voyeurism. It's allowing people to say, oh, I can identify with that person who's living homeless because I heard a story on NPR about it, and the story was really emotional, and it was a great tribute to the plight of homeless people, instead of ever having a conversation about how we can actually address the homeless issue, right? They love to put up a portrait, a profile of poverty, and never address the systemic problems that create poverty and make sure that poverty is with us. They want to make the wealthy and the people who fancy themselves to be enlightened feel as though they've done a good thing because they've listened to a damn story about a homeless girl, 17-year-old girl, who grew up in a homeless shelter and got 2 jobs so that she can move out of the homeless shelter, but can't afford to let her mom live with her, so her mom still stays at the homeless shelter. This is literally, I'm not making that one up. That's a story that they took 10 minutes to paint this beautiful portrait with nice music in the background, all the while giving this ridiculous story. Yes, it's ridiculous because we are just sharing in her pain without ever doing anything about her pain. That's what NPR has become. And this morning, they had the nerve to explain to us why a university with billions of dollars in endowment cannot be expected to give these workers a living wage just because they have $1 billion in an endowment. Somebody tweeted something to me this morning that kind of sums it up. This is really how it's going. This is the direction that NPR is going in. And it's on your screen now. So I tweeted out, NPR just did an explainer on why people shouldn't expect Harvard's $35 billion endowment to support living wages for cafeteria staff. Go to hell, NPR. And LVC said, coming up on NPR Marketplace, can this new Silicon Valley startup help poor people sell their organs online? That is exactly the type of insanity that we are starting to get from NPR. Let's look at the bright side. There's nothing really wrong here. There's a bright side to it. Teachers are working full-time jobs, but they have to drive Uber at night just to make the bills pay. Instead of talking about the problem, they'll say Uber is providing great opportunities for teachers to fill the void. And then somebody had asked me, well, is it the job of journalists to talk about a solution? If you consider your job as a journalist to try to be balanced, then you wouldn't present an argument that completely erases the true problem. You would present all of the components of a problem and all of the different voices arguing about a problem, and then let people decide for themselves. That's not what happened this morning. This morning, they gave a 5-minute explainer as to why we should not look at a $35 billion endowment as justification as to why these workers should have gotten their raise. Well, you know what, NPR, go to hell, because they got their raise.